Welcome, everyone. My name is Tristan here, and Joe Goff is on as well to help run the meeting. The topic today is setting up barcode definitions in WATNet. We have a large group, so please remain muted. I will hold a Q&A at the end of the presentation, at which time I will read questions from chat and call on people who indicate that they have a question. With that, let's get started. Quick overview of what we're going to be doing today. We're going to start off by going over some example barcodes that will later be sent up barcode definitions for. We're going to then switch on over to the WATNet software and navigate to the barcode definition editor. And then we're going to select and set some barcode specifications before we jump in and create some barcode definitions. Here we have a Landis and Gear meter. Right off the bat, we can see that there's a couple of different barcodes on here. There's one more towards the center of the meter and one towards the top. The one in the middle, this is our meter number barcode. This meter number barcode, for example, has 9 characters. This will play a larger role later on once we actually start creating the barcode. Then if we transition our attention up towards the top of the meter, we have the AMI ID, which has a total character length of 8. So now we'll come back to this, but let's go ahead and transition into the software now. Here I have the management dashboard. This is the home page for the WATNet software. On the left-hand side toolbar, we can go to Admin. And then under the Setup header, we have Barcode Settings. Inside of here, to edit our barcode definitions, we'll need to go into Edit Barcode Definitions for Metering. We're going to solely focus inside of barcode definitions for metering today, but if you're curious about kind of barcode definitions for CTs or PTs, everything that we do here today also applies to those two. All right. So we're going to be spending the majority of our time today inside of here. To start off, along the top toolbar, we have the back button. This will take us back to the previous screen. We have the Add button. This will add a new barcode definition. The Delete button, which will delete a barcode definition. The Save button, which will save our changes. The Print button, which gives us the option to print the screen to a screenshot or print the screen to an image. And then we also have our Import and Export options. These are ideal for if you're using WATNet Basic and you need to take a barcode definition from one computer, one instance of the software, and take it to another one. So then if we have some barcode definitions that we want to take, we can go ahead and export each of them to a flat file, for example, like a text file, .csv, and Excel file, and then import those files onto the other computer. If you use a different version of WATNet that has a central database, you should have access to those immediately without having to use the export and import option. Moving on, we have the barcode label name. This shows what barcode we currently have selected. So for example, right now we have the default barcode selected. This comes loaded automatically with any installation of WATNet. If we click on this dropdown, this is where we can see where all of our different barcode definitions are. Since right now we only have this one created, it's the only one that's available. Once we start creating more definitions, though, we'll begin seeing more instances and more names that we can select from later. Below there, we have the scan order. This allows us to set up almost like a sequence hierarchy for how we want to scan barcodes that have a similar length. So let's say, for example, our meter number and AMI ID are both 9 characters long, let's say. If we have a system where we know we always scan the meter number first, and then we scan the AMI ID second, we can go ahead and set the scan order for the meter number as 1 and our AMI ID as 2. That way, when we scan our barcode, you'll see we have 9 characters, and that the first 9 character long barcode that we want to select is the meter number. The second 9 character long definition or barcode that we scan will be the AMI ID. If we have the scan order set as any, then once we scan a 9-digit barcode, it will come up and say we have multiple barcode definitions set up for a character length of 9. And then we'll be able to select from there which one we want to use. Next is scan order. We have open scan order editor. This is for if you wanted to go ahead and apply some text after you select a certain scan order and scan. So let's say we have this set up for our scan order of 1 is our meter ID or our meter number, and then we want to scan our AMI ID afterwards. We can set up a dialog box to come up that says scan AMI ID, and then we would click save. This would make it that once we scan our meter number, this dialog box would come up and tell the user, now scan the AMI ID. If we wanted to put the text specific to a barcode rather than to a scan order, we can do that under prompt text. Next, we have barcode action. Underneath barcode action, it gives us a list of options that we can use to select what action we want to do right as soon as we scan a barcode. So for example, if we know right as soon as we scan our meter number, we want to go ahead and begin our test, we can go ahead and set the barcode action to start test. This will automatically that once the barcode scanner reads that barcode, it will begin the test. Or if we want to just creep the meter or jog the meter, we can select that as well. Next, we have regular expression. This allows us to say if any barcode that we scan has or begins with this number or contains this piece of text, to use this barcode definition. So if we know all of our meter numbers begin with the number, let's say 7, then we can say contains text 7, and it knows if my barcode begins with this text, to automatically use it at position 1. If we knew all of our meter numbers had the number 7 at position 3, we could increment this to 3 and it would automatically use this barcode definition. Next, we have the barcode label definition set up right here. This is where we actually get to break down barcodes and say what all information do we have stored inside of the barcode that we're scanning. For this one, this is our default layout, which has a total length of 17. 17 is usually a pretty typical number or length for a barcode. So first we have 4 different columns. We have description, start position, length, and format. Under the description box, this is where we get to say what our information is. So if it's the lookup code, meter number, serial number, AMI ID, this is where we can select it from a drop-down box. Next, we have the start position. This defines where within the barcode that this description begins. So if we say that the lookup code is begins with the very first digit of the barcode, we know the start position is 1, and then we can say that the length of that information is 2, meaning that the lookup code will take up the first 2 numbers of that barcode, and then we know our next manufacturer will begin at start position 3. Lastly, we have format. This is for if we have any leading zeros that we want to remove. So let's say, for example, our meter number, if we know that it has a total length of 14, but it has a leading 0 that we don't care about, we can click on this drop-down, select remove leading zeros, and this will go ahead and remove that leading 0 from when the data is placed into our data view. All right, so now that we know all of the basics and fundamentals, let's go ahead and look into creating our own barcode definition. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the landing gear meter we were looking at earlier. And we can see that we have 2 different barcodes for it. The meter number, which has a length of 9, and an AMI ID, which has a length of 8. Going back to our software, we can begin creating our own barcode definition by selecting Add at the top of the screen. And now it's going to ask me if I want to save my changes that I've made for our barcode label name default. I'm going to go ahead and say no. And now it's going to prompt me to enter a name for the barcode label. Since this is a Anderson gear meter, I'm going to go and call it a Anderson gear meter number. Say OK. And now it's going to clear out any information that we previously had in here, because it's going to give us a blank slate to start with. Because I don't have any other barcodes with a length of time, I'm going to go ahead and leave the scan order as any. And I'm not looking to start any kind of test or jog the meter or creep it, so I'm going to leave barcode action as none. Under barcode label definition, I'm going to select that. And this will give us a new description that we can define. This automatically comes pre-populated as meter number when you click add. And it just so happens to be that we're also creating one for a meter number at the moment. So I will not be changing description. Later on, when we start creating more barcodes, like for the AMI ID and so forth, then we'll go ahead and change the description. We know the meter number has a start position of 1. And the total length of the meter number that we previously looked at is 9. So I'll change my length to 9. And now this change will take place once I click out of this box into a different box or press the tab key. Doing this will also increment our barcode length from 1 to 9. Once I click tab, you see this one goes from being a 1 to a 9. Now that we're all finished with this specific barcode, we can click Save at the top. And we see we get a confirmation message down here along the bottom of this blue bar. If we hover over to this blue bar or click on it, we'll get a dialog box saying what has recently happened in the software. Now this same blue bar will be both here inside the barcode definition header as well as in the meter testing screen. I'll say OK. And then we'll go over to the meter testing screen and we'll get this meter scanned. So I'm going to go ahead and sort the blank slate by selecting new meter and say yes. And now we can see we don't have any information at all within our data field. So because we just set up a barcode to set up for the meter number, once I go ahead and scan this meter, we will see that meter number populate. And then if we come down here to this blue bar, we can see that our barcode was successfully scanned right here. Moving on, we'll go ahead and create the AMI ID. We'll go ahead and start off again by clicking Add, and we'll give it a name of Anderson Gear AMI ID. Say OK. And now once again, we don't have any other barcodes right now with a definition of 8 characters long. So I'm going to keep scan order as any. In my barcode action, I'm going to leave this down as well. We'll select Add to add a new description element. Click on the drop down, and we will select AMI ID. This one, once again, also has a start position of 1 and a total length of 8. I'll now select Save to save all of our changes for Anderson Gear AMI ID. And we'll see that we have our confirmation message down here at the bottom that the barcode label was saved. Now coming back up here to our meter testing screen, once I scan this barcode, we'll see that the AMR ID will update with this information. And just like that, we can set simple barcode definition. So now let's look at something that's a little more complex. Here we have a census meter. This one, as we can see, just like our Anderson Gear meter, has 2 different barcodes, the top one being for an AMI module. Since we've already set up a barcode for an AMI module, we're going to go ahead and look over this and focus more so on the one that's in the middle. This is a barcode that has a character length of 17 and has much more information in it than just the meter number. Breaking this down, we can see that the first 2 characters, 1 N, is a lookup code, The next character is the manufacturer number. This can be for manufacturer code, this can either be a letter or a number. And then next we have a leading 0 before our meter number. There's two different ways that we can deal with this, and one of them is to list them as a filler within the software. Once we transition back over to the software, we'll look at both ways that we can deal with it. Next, we have the meter number. And then lastly, it looks like we've got all the characters that we need inside of this barcode. But there are some additional spaces here at the end between the two asterisks. So in this case, they are important. They do play a role, but we're going to list them as filler as well inside the software. Once we get this barcode definition set up and working, I'll also show what happens if we don't define enough spaces inside of the barcode definition. Now let's go ahead and go back on over to the software. Now we'll go back to our barcode definition editor. And then we'll create another new one. So we'll select App, and we'll do Census Meter for the name of this one. And then for scan order, we now have, well, I'll touch on that later. Overall, we have two definitions. They'll be 17 characters long, and then we'll need to set up the scan order later. But for now, let's go ahead and just work on setting up this meter. So first, we know that the first parameter was the lookup code. And it had a start position of 1 and a total length of 2. Next, we have the manufacturer, which had a start position of 3 and a length of 1. And now next, we have our meter number with a leading 0. One way that we can tackle this is we know that the meter number without the leading 0 is 8 characters. With that leading 0, it's 9. So we can define our meter number length as 9. And under the format dropdown, select remove leading 0. And now when the software scans this barcode, it'll interpret it as the meter number is 9 characters long. But there's a 0 in the beginning, we need to remove it. And that's what this right here will do. If we wanted to go ahead and go about it a different way, we could go ahead and instead of doing the meter number right now, select filler and set the length to 1 and leave the format as blank. The reason why we're setting the 0 as filler is because the 0 doesn't play an important role in defining the information that we need. It's simply just filler information. Next, we'll go ahead and add in the meter number, which has a start position of 5 and a length of 8. And then lastly, we have those additional spaces. Just like the leading 0 in this instance, it's additional information that is important in scanning the barcode, but it doesn't play an important role in providing us valuable information that we're interested in. So then we can select Add and include that filler, or include the spaces as a filler with a total length of 5. I'm saying that there are 5 spaces there because our barcode length right now is 13. And since a standard barcode is typically about 17 characters long, it's probably safe to assume that we have 5 spaces there to get our barcode length from 13 to 17. And now I will select Save. And now we have a barcode definition length of 17 for Census Meter and for our default. If I was to scan the meter right now, it would come up and say that I have 2 barcode definitions of 17, and it would ask me which one I want to use. If I knew I wanted to use the Census one first every time, I could set the Census Meter, a scan order of 1, and say Save. And then transition over to default and give it a scan order of 2, and say Save. From here, we can transition back over to our meter testing window, and I'll go ahead and start over with a fresh meter. Now I'll go ahead and scan this barcode. from there, we can see that our lookup code populated, which also populated our form number, our case of H, our volts and amps, as well as our meter number. If we come down here to the blue bar, we can also see that our barcode was successfully scanned right here. If we ever have any kind of issues wondering if the barcode scanned properly or if it scanned the digits that we expected it to, we can also come down here and see that information. Now going back to the barcode definition editor, I'm going to go ahead and delete this default setup to prove a point about if we don't have enough spaces. So to delete this default, I'll select default, say yes I want to delete it. Now I'll go back to our Census Meter barcode definition. Let's say we were looking at this meter and we said, we think there's 3 spaces there at the end. And we click save. We see now we have a barcode length of 15. Because the barcode that we're scanning has a total length of 17, when we go back to the meter testing window now and scan it, starting with a fresh meter, we will see that an error message will pop up. This error message says that there's no matching barcode definitions found with length 17. What this is saying is we don't have any barcode definitions set up right now for a total length of 17 because we had set up our barcode definition for this for 15. Now this does give us the option to select any of our barcode definitions that we have set up, but this is a good way to find out that we didn't properly set up our barcode. If we click cancel, we can go back to admin, change our filler for the additional spaces from 3 to 5. Save. Now when I go back and scan this meter again, we see everything populate and we no longer have an error message. At this time, I'd like to begin taking questions. To avoid talking over one another, please use the chat feature to pose your question or ask to be called on. I'll read questions submitted in chat or call on you to ask a question out loud. Don asks, is a recording available? Yes, right now we are recording this entire meeting, and afterwards we can supply that to you. Not a problem. What barcode, Mark is asking, what barcode scanners do you recommend? Is Zebra 2270 okay? Jill, do you mind taking this one?
Sure. There are probably a bunch out there we have not specifically used or tested with. The Zebra 2270 is one of them. Mark, what we would recommend is if you do have one of those, plug it in and give it a check. If you don't, I can reach out to the team to see if it's compatible. For the most part, I believe all the Zebra products are, but it would need some checking. I know we use Motorola specifically here, but that doesn't mean that's the only one to use. Did that cover it, Mark, for you? As vague as it was? Okay. Yeah, I will do some checking for you, Mark. We'll note that down. Thank you. And then Tristan, Don has another question.
Well, looks like Don is asking, can we assign barcodes to equipment besides meters, CTs, and PTs? Are you aware, Jill, if we can assign barcodes to any other pieces of equipment?
Right now, it is just for CTs and PTs. If there is a specific piece of equipment you are looking for, Don, let us know. We can enter it in as an enhancement request and pass it up to the development team for discussion, and we can keep you in the loop as things go on. And Don, if you'd like to reach, sorry about that, Tristan. Don, if you'd like to send us an email with that information, we can go ahead and get that going for you. Sorry, Tristan, go ahead. We have another question.
Justin's asking if for the barcode scanners, if we do not program them through the scanner software, because we want all the data to come into WAPNet. Do you mind taking this one, Jill?
Justin, I'm not sure I fully understand the question. I'm not sure I understand the question fully. About programming the barcode scanners?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I was just curious because we also have Zebra scanners, and you can go into the Zebra software, you can go in and do exactly what you're looking for in WAPNet. But I'm assuming you don't want to do that because you want all the raw data to WAPNet, and I just wanted to verify that.
Yeah, it started out good, and then it got a little echoey. No, it's about the same. If you want to give me your number, I can go ahead and give you a call after the meeting.
Okay.
We can talk specifically.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. If you'll you can type the number into the chat if that's okay, and we'll give you a call afterwards.
All right, let's wait about 15 more seconds for any additional questions. Thank you, Don. I'm glad that's been very important. All right. Tim has a question. Is there a barcode scanner available for the field equipment such as the RW30? The Motorola, pretty much any Motorola barcode scanner that can connect to that serial port should be able to do the job just fine. And then if you're interested in any pricing for that, Tim, let us know. We can definitely get that available for you as well. Anything that isn't cord-based. Jill, do you know if there's any barcode scanners that we support with DRW that are not cord-based?
I don't know. I know we have wireless. Scanners. I would just have to see if there's anything specific that would not be accommodated through the USB port, which is how you would usually have to set that up. And the only other thing is that there would be a base you'd have to have connected to it. So I don't know that anything but a cord-based is going to be really user-friendly for you, Tim, but I can do some checking and see if we've got any examples that would be a wireless option for you. You're welcome. You're welcome, Tim.
All right. Thank you all for attending. If you think of any questions, email technical support at radianresearch.com or at 765-449-5576. You can also visit our website at radianresearch.com. We enjoy being your solutions partner and look forward to working with you. Hope you have a great day, and we hope to see you at the next presentation. Thank you.